Columbia with LifeSteps, right?
Yes.
And a very exciting book project, among other things, right? All right. So, here comes Ben.
Hey, we had it on the screen. Gotta love technology, right? Well, thank you guys for having me. I feel honored to share about what's going on in LifeSteps and with the Storybook, and I'm very grateful for your all's support. And so since the last update, which was over the summer, we shared a lot about the spring break trip. And so I am going to share on everything, or try to, everything that's happened since then, and there's a lot, so I'm going to try to be short. But for some that don't know me, my name is Ben. I'm Patty and Jerry's son, and I'm a missionary with LifeSteps. And so I'll get to the point. And I have to tell them, next. Next. One more. Perfect. Okay, so this would I think it's our third or fourth stories from the field. So I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the disciple-making process. I'm going to jump in to some of the groups that we're going through. So you guys may remember the Emmanuel group. We've been working with them for about 2.5, going on 3 years. They recently graduated, probably since the last time we've shared. And this, okay, I better just stick to the script. So they recently graduated, and as Jerry keeps coming back, they're missing that week-long training of being together, carving time out, going outside of their jobs, coming into one place, and spending time in the Word and fellowship. And they asked Jerry, is there anything else you can teach us? So that's where we started. That's where Jerry started going this last trip. And a refresher, the Emmanuel Group is an association of 45 churches. And every year they make a poster to put every church of the families and the families of the leadership team. And it's this big, massive poster with every single picture of every pastor. And they put it on all the walls of the churches. And this last year, they put Patty and Jerry up there as teachers, a part of the Emmanuel Association. So they've grafted them into the family, so we feel very honored and special to be considered part of their family. So back to the request to teach more. The consensus was that they knew how to share the gospel, they knew how to invite others to Jesus, they know how to disciple people that disciple others, and they know how to pastor people, and they know how to preach. But the thing they were struggling with and kept coming up was counseling on some of the more serious issues they were dealing with their people. And so Jerry, through much prayer, counseling, and discussing with others, and many who have walked in the counseling world before him, and then with a lot more time in the Word and with a lot more prayer, he came up with a rough draft of a biblical counseling course to walk through with them for a week that builds off of the foundation that was formed in the disciple-making training they had already been through. And it went wonderfully. There were about 30 families that showed up. The Emmanuel Association actually opened it up to everyone, part of them, not just those who had been through the training, but their spouses, their family members, and any other pastors that wanted to participate. So there were about 30 families and all that came, and this is a picture of them. Next. And if you remember the Emmanuel Association, so there were 32 to 35, depending on which time you came, in the Emmanuel Association that went through the disciple-making process and actually graduated. And they are all pastors and some leaders. And some of them are missionaries to other areas, and some of them not only pastor their church that they work at, but they have 3, 5, some have 7 groups outside, some that they have to travel hours to that they meet weekly. And they meet in homes like this in a tiny, congested room every single week for the last 3 years, and it's amazing. This trip that Jerry's on right now, he left Wednesday, and he'll be there until the 26th. He will continue to meet with Emmanuel pastors and work with them on their second and third generation leaders. And next, this is Juan de Dios, one of them who we've shared a lot on, and many of you have prayed for his health. He's had really bad health problems going on. The Lord has restored a lot of his health. His sight has come back, and he has a form of diabetes that's really aggressive. He has massive complications, but he continues to be faithful and serve. But this is Juan, and Juan was going to a place called Arabia in India, not the countries, but remote villages in Colombia. And he started going to Arabia so much, next, that this is his drive to Arabia. This is Jerry and Sierra as well. And he would take this every single week. And it's a super bumpy, through the mountain passes of Colombia. And he started working with a family and developed a come and see group. And through that, other families started in this group, and now they have actually planted an Emmanuel church from the come and see group, which is awesome. And so the association moved their pastors around, and he is now living in Arabia, pastoring that church. So next. And this is actually inside of one of their homes. So they have a church building that's being built, and they still meet in homes around the church with different come and see groups, and this is one of them. And right now there's 25 people that are part of the Arabia church, which is awesome. Next. And then two more leaders of the Emmanuel Association are Hector and Edwin. And they not only have been pastoring their respected churches, but they've also been working in different communities around their area with different come and see groups and discipling one-on-one, dealing with issues that come up as being a pastor, issues come up. But the Lord has put it on their heart to actually go to Honduras, and so they've been traveling together and meeting with individuals, kind of formalizing a new group that's about to start. And they're actually going next week to look at planting a training center and introduce this process. So not just working individually, but doing what Bud has been doing in India, doing what we've been doing in Colombia and various other places, of forming a training center to work with the leaders of a local church, to have them begin to form disciples, to make disciples. And so that will be next week. They're going to Honduras, and we're very excited to partner with them. And yeah, we're very excited to be along this journey with them. Next. Okay, that may be out of order. But next, so talking about second and third and fourth generation leaders, that brings me to the YU. And this last, that's perfect. Coming up to the last summer trip, there was a lot of conflict going on in the YU, a lot of disunity, and the Lord was just kind of really pruning the group. And when Jerry was there, he had to confront some issues because we're human and sin happens, and we have to deal with sin. And so what became of that is an incredibly unified, strong group of leaders now that are committed and able and willing to continue to follow the Lord. And it's exciting to see the growth in them and their culture that struggles a lot with following Jesus. There's a lot of legalism. There's a lot of, I want a list of to-dos so I can just check the boxes. And that's heavy in their culture. And so it's been a very slow-moving group. There always seems to be a lot of issues. But we're excited that right now Jerry will spend next week with them and work on their second and third generation leaders and actually be talking about the next steps for them of planting a training center in another rancheria with the YU. And so also another exciting thing with the YU going on is Maximus, and you will hit next. Maximus DeBoer has had a heart for the YU people, and I'm going to invite him up here in a second, but we have partnered with him to work with the YU people and sell some bags as part of raising funds for the YU for LifeSteps and for his ministry efforts. But we're excited to see what the Lord is doing in Maximus's heart. And so will you help me welcome him to the stage?
Well, as Ben said, my name is Maximus. I'm currently 16 and I go to Bixby High School. I used to go here, but then my family and I, we moved, we felt God calling us, so we moved churches to Woodland. Originally, I was just looking for something to do. This April, I was kind of bored, and I was like, well, I want something to do. My mom knew Jerry just through here, and she, as a gift from Jerry, she got one of the YU's bags. She would just carry it around for fun. And she kept getting compliments like, oh, your purse is so pretty, where'd you get it? So I was like, hey, I can sell them and then give money back to the YU people and Jerry's ministry, helping support both. So I set a meeting with Jerry and I showed him my idea. He liked it, so he brought in a batch of about 14. I sold most of them and was like, well, I need more bags. So the reason I went down there is to set up a supply chain. My grandfather and I went down there. It was only a 4-day trip. And we went down there, and the first day was, okay, let us find the shipping. So we went around, we found somebody who could bring it back. And then we got the bags packed up and shipped back. So now I have about 80 bags, because I've sold about 20 of them. And I was also, while I was down there, I was able to meet the people, which is really neat. And they were so appreciative, which I was not expecting. They sang me a song, were just thanking me so much for what I was doing, and I was like, I've barely done anything. Oh. This is the song. That was the song they sang me. So after seeing that and doing that, it really invigorated me, and I was like, man, I really want to make this happen now. So when I got back to Tulsa, I got the bags in, 100 and so now with the bags, I can go ahead and sell them, and then take the money from them and give them back to LifeSteps Ministries so that they can continue to work and continue to get disciples down there. And on top of that, part of the profits are going straight to the YU people. So it's helping to build up their economy so that they're not just making a little bit off of the bags, just a small profit, now they're making an even larger profit. So I would like to thank you guys for letting me come. And I do have some bags with me if you'd like to see them. We also have a website, tripleblessings.org. Thank you.
Definitely been a joy to see a young man on fire like he is. I know when I was his age, I was nothing like that, so that's awesome. Next. Okay, so yeah, it's really cool how Maximus is partnering with us and working with us and helping bring sustainability to the YU people. And that's something that's very important to us, is not coming in to a group and just doing it for them. We like them. It's exciting to see the chain of them being able to grow, teach them the skills to teach others. We love that. So, also, since the last Stories from the Field was McCallum. So if you guys didn't know, we have been working with Frank Ortega, which many of you might know or recognize that sign. Maybe you sent your kids down there when they were little. But FBC has partnered with Frank for at least a decade. I remember when I was 15 or 16 going for the first time, maybe with someone sitting back over there in the corner, and I was just a little hyper energetic twerp, if I put it lightly. And one of the last days we went out to lunch with Frank and Mary, and she was sharing, and she was kind of tearing up, just talking about the change. And it's exciting to go back and see how they have grown and developed, and how the Lord has worked through their family in their community. And so we've been working with the Callan group since the beginning of last year. And Jerry Coy and myself went down to continue working with the group. And Jerry and Coy also went down so they could invest dedicated time to invest in Frank. Now this is a group of Maranatha Church members that are leading in some capacity, either leading or co-leading a weekly Bible study, a discipleship group, or a fellowship group. Or they could be leading worship, involved with children's ministry, or they are on the elder board, or preparing to be an overseas missionary. But most of them, if not all, I don't think one of them said they weren't serving in some capacity. But they're serving and leading in McAllen mostly, but some are crossing the border each week to start come and see groups in Mexico. And so this group is the church's core group of leaders. And they're walking people through the process as they themselves are going through the same process. And so I'm sure you know, as I know, that being in community is important, and it's a necessity. So during the day, Jerry Coy and I, really not a whole lot of I, mostly them, was spending time with Frank, just listening and learning and walking through some of the challenge that it takes with pastoring and shepherding people. The time was extremely vital for them to be able to lean on one another and encourage each other through the Word. During the evening, we met with the group that we were teaching and walked through what they would see as characteristics of a disciple and how Jesus is developing them as disciples. And that was based on our Come and See inductive study through John 1 through 4. And this was the third training of the year, and they have become like family to us. So this was my first time going on any of the trips. I'm usually just in the office or here teaching. So it was really exciting. Jerry and Coy have been 2 other times, and I know that most of the people in this group are like family to me just after a week. And so to see them relate in a way that there's no question they're family, it was really encouraging and exciting. But like I said, this was my first time, and this was definitely my first time teaching with a translator. Most of them don't speak English. Maybe 3 speak English, and 2 others speak really bad English. And then the rest don't speak any English. So I've never talked with a translator. I've never communicated through a translator. That was an experience, for sure. But one that I welcome the next time of go around. It was fun. I don't know Spanish. I know enough to know that's not what I meant to say, or enough to say I want to address that. But I don't know how to speak it. And if I read it, I probably get it wrong, but I know how to use Google Translate really, really well. But we will go back around the first of the year to continue walking through with this group next. And we left them, so when we left, we finished the inductive study, the come and see phase of John 1 through John 4. And we left them storybooks of the follow me stage, which is Mark 1 through Mark 3. And that brings me to talking about storybooks. And so if I say storybook and you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's these things that you may have seen on a table once a time or two. You may have heard people talk about them, and if you haven't, I'm sure you will hear a lot about them in 2019. That is for sure. But the storybooks is something we've been working on for a while and have been actively using since day one the first book was made back in 2016. And I'm not going to go into a whole ton of detail on it because you're going to hear a lot of Storybook in 2019 to come. But the general idea of them is that we created a wordless storybook of the life of Christ and his disciples that correlates to the process that we walk through in India, that Bud walks through in India, that we go through with Jerry in Columbia, with McAllen, and in Tulsa right here at FBC. And it isn't a replacement of the Word of God, but rather a tool to help communicate the narrative of the story of Christ for people like the Wayuu who are a storytelling society. Much like myself, and I imagine some of you, my brain works that way. I need to hear a story for it to really sink in. I can read words and hear things, but unless it's in a story, my brain just doesn't get it. And, that's kind of like the Wayuu people, and so it's really impacted their lives. Our hope is that it points them to the Bible. It doesn't replace the Bible. So far we've finished 2 books, which you see up there. The one on the left is the Come and See, and the scene right there is John the Baptist saying, "Behold the Lamb of God," and then the first initial 4 disciples. And then the one on the right is the Follow Me stage, where Jesus picks by name the 4 disciples and asks them to go in a deeper level of commitment to follow him, and he will make them to become fishers of men. And so right now, the one we're working on, so it's a team of myself, Jerry, Patty, and Ashley Rice. We're working on the next phase, which is the second half of Jesus' earthly ministry. And we call that the Be With Me stage. And that's been a hard one because there's 42 major events. There's 42 miracles, but then lots of other events in that time frame. We're talking about from Mark 3 to Mark 16, so there's a lot that we have to go through to figure out how to communicate the narrative of the story of Christ. And I would say right now, it's going to be 3 books. So that's one more than we've even done so far. So we're on our way. We're about 12 out of 42 scenes sketched out. So we have a long road ahead of us. But graciously, Christ for Humanity and this church, Fellowship Bible, has partnered together to print 5,000 of each of these books that will be coming out in the end of this year that are going to all over the world. And so we're really excited and very grateful for what FBC and Christ for Humanity have done. And to get these into the hands of people who are using them. Because right now, I know some of you have actually helped put some of the ones that with the stickers and put them together. And so we've put out about 700, I think. And right now they're in Mexico, Tulsa, McAllen, Colombia, Ethiopia, Myanmar, India, and some other countries on the list that aren't mentioned here. So we're excited what is coming in 2019 for the Storybook. And one way to get involved coming up is there's going to be lots of opportunities with the Storybook of putting them together, helping us create some of the little things, because all of these is a collage. We sit together in a room for like 80 hours and go over color, go over paint, and cut these little things out of paper and make a master copy of a collage. And it's a really fun process, but in that, there's millions of heads that need to be cut. There's millions of shapes and sheep and mountains and clouds. And so that's one way coming up to be involved with what's going on. But the main thing that we need right now is next, is prayer. You can give, you can come serve on the medical trip coming up next summer. You can help with the storybooks, and there's many, many other ways that you can get involved with what's going on. But the main thing that we need right now is prayer. Pray for our leaders, that they would remain in the Word and reflect Jesus' transformation in their lives. Some of them, especially with the Emmanuel group, they work in destitute areas and remote places with people that are struggling, people that are addicted, and not just to drugs and alcohol, but sex, corruption, money, performance-based thinking, good enough thinking, legalism, hatred, shame, and sin. They work with people, and with people comes sin. And it's messy and it's hard, so they need to be covered in prayer for sure. And pray for their communities, the ones that they're working in, that the light of Christ would shine brightly and that people's lives would continue to be transformed by Christ. And pray for us as a team, as we continue to depend on Christ, His Spirit, and His Word. Pray that we would continue to allow Jesus to uproot us physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and that we would work with Him and not against Him. Pray for unity among the YU, unity among the Emmanuel. I can't imagine being an association of 45 churches. I know in Tulsa we struggle with the few churches that we have. So 45, pray for unity, for sure. And pray for us as believers that we would be light to Colombia. I don't know if any of you follow the news of what's going on in South America right now, but it's in unrest. And with Colombia, with the Venezuelan crisis in the border, there's over 1.5 million people that have come over just in the last year into Colombia, not Peru or any of the other ones, but just through Colombia. And their newly elected Colombian president has sent thousands of troops to the border, as well as Venezuela has sent troops to the border. So there's a lot of political turmoil right now. The president of Colombia has also agreed to be quick to go to war if other countries will join him to remove the Venezuelan president. So there's a lot of things going on right now that we need prayer for. And with all of this moving and shuttling around, the military groups, the FARC, there was a peace deal that has dissolved. And through that, the drug trade has skyrocketed again. Murders are escalating. Some of the border towns which our Emmanuel pastors work in, there's 2 to 3 murders a day. And these are our pastors and leaders in these communities working, and so they need our prayers. So if you will join us in prayer, that's the biggest way that you can participate. And I don't know how God works through intercession, but I know it's commanded, and I know that there is power in prayer, so we're asking that you would pray. We have prayer sheets back in the back from our last prayer meeting a couple weeks ago. And if you would, there's enough copies for everyone here. If you will take one, just put it on the fridge. As you pass it the next couple months, just pray for something. Start at the top, the bottom, the middle, turn it over, anywhere. Just pray and cross it off. That would be huge. That would be very impactful. So I just want to invite you to do that, as well as I have a list. We have started sending text prayers because they're much more, people read them versus email. And so if you would like to get texted prayer updates, we don't send them very often, but they're short little urgent prayers. There's a list that you can sign up in the back. But thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate that. It's interesting to sit back and just kind of look at the pattern in that verse in Acts. It says Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. And you've heard so far it's Tulsa and Fellowship Bible and Missouri and Texas, and then places I can't even spell and way far away. The pattern kind of works, doesn't it?